Hello and welcome to Ready to Roll from INTERGAMINGi, where we speak to iGaming professionals as they start out on exciting new jobs across the industry. Today I'm joined by Leo Barker, who has recently become the VP Commercial in the EMEA region for OpticOdds, which was recently acquired by Gambling.com Group. Leo, how are you doing today?
Yeah, fantastic. It's great to be here sharing our time together.
Good stuff. So I guess we should start with asking you how you're settling into your new role.
Yeah, really well actually. So I started 3 weeks ago. The first week of which was onboarding, excuse me, out in the US. So yeah, it was great to get an introduction to the sort of key personnel, strategy, bit of a sort of deeper dive into the product suite. Also, we were out in Boulder in Colorado, which is a beautiful spot. So we're able to do a bit of the introductions on a hike up the mountains, which is a new one. Yeah, it's been mostly about since then reaching out to industry contacts, friends and the like to sort of know where I've landed and get that sort of update. So yeah, it's all been good.
Okay. And obviously, one of the key factors for yourself, I imagine, will have been the acquisition of OpticOdds and its parent, Odds Holdings, by Gambling.com Group. Perhaps you could just explain a little bit more about why that was a key factor in you taking the job.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Optic has obviously had a huge amount of success recently. It's a relatively new business, and has seen sort of exponential growth over the last few years. And I think, you can be incredibly agile with your product sets and developing new features and functionality and that kind of thing. And I think, the next step, I mean, Opticos has obviously been incredibly successful across the US market in a very short period. And I think what you then need to sort of help roll out that expansion is the backing of a big company. So, that was always going to be fundamental to my decision.
Okay. And in terms of the backing from Gambling.com Group, what can that do for OpticOdds and its products going forward?
I mean, expansion ultimately, and I think that's across the board. That might be new hires, getting more talent on board. I think being able to respond as quickly as possible to the various new markets we're moving into. And I think, fundamentally it's going to be having, financial backing, but I think that just gives you the flexibility and ability to roll out into those new markets as we're hoping to.
Okay. And in terms of the different products that OpticOdds has in its roster, if you like, obviously various things to do with sports betting. What's your remit within them, and which of those will you be working with in your role?
It's going to be across the board, really. I mean, there's a really strong commercial team in place already. I think, my role is going to be coming over the top of that and seeing where I can add additional value. So, I think the way that I interact with those products probably won't be that different from anybody else, nor will I be focusing on any one over another. I think, we're focused. We've got quite a core products portfolio, and I think my job is to ensure, firstly, that the market is aware of who we are and what we do and how we can help service the challenges that all operators have got. So, yeah.
So what are the kind of challenges that operators face in terms of working with OpticOdds?
Yeah, I mean, it's a multifaceted million-dollar question, and it's always going to be dependent on the markets. I mean, I think if we're sort of looking at it from the sort of top-down view, I think the one thing we can say about all markets is you're going to need personalization, and I think that's always been fundamental to what OpticOdds does. So, in that way, staying in line with whether you want as an operator to stay in line with your competitors, whether you want to have, the best odds guaranteed, whether you want, being able to respond appropriately to your market and have the greatest possible degree of control is always going to be fundamental. And I think that's going to be across all markets. And so, that's a pretty universal challenge that we're able to support.
Okay, and in terms of your role is obviously VP Commercial in the EMEA region. What specific markets within that region will you be working in?
I don't think it is really specific. I think, as I said, the product suite that we've got is able to respond to everybody. I mean, I think that's the core remit is that we are able to support all markets because of that degree of personalization and the flexibility of the product. So, you know, um, Europe itself, I mean, it's an incredibly mature market. So I think all of those are very well known to me. I've had a number of roles across some really big names in the past, and I think I've got really good experience of sort of what those challenges are. I think and across Africa as well. I had South African customers as well in the past, and most of those challenges are the same. But I think the core part of the flexibility of the products is what affords us universal support across those markets. And I think we're not going to be focusing on any one particular market. I think it's a universal thing.
Okay. And you obviously touched on your previous experience there from OpenBet and Genius Sports, Bet Genius. What kind of things will kind of relate to this job, and what sort of skills can you sort of bring forward from those roles into your new role?
I mean, I guess the first thing to say, the little black book. I mean, having a large number of contacts and friends within the industry. I think, as we talked about, OpticOdds has had huge success in the US and fledgling success already across Europe and Asia. And I think making sure that the market knows how well we can support it. I think getting out there and saying, look, what we can do is not currently sufficiently supported by other providers, and I think we've got a niche here that we should be helping you with and supporting you with. And so yeah, we're really excited about that.
So in terms of Europe and your role being in Europe, what are the main opportunities, but also challenges of working in EMEA region?
Yeah, I think it's the challenges are constantly evolving, but I think they remain quite similar. And that's, you want to be able to respond as quickly and in an agile fashion to the way that the markets and the industry is changing. But the core challenges remain the same, and that's things like regulatory challenges, new markets expansion, personalization, and all of those are fundamental to what OpticOdds does.
Okay. And what are your kind of personal goals and ambitions in your role for the first maybe 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few headline ambitions I've got for the role, and I think, as I mentioned before, like firstly, it's ensuring the market's aware of our services. There's been huge wins for the business, especially in the US over the past couple of years, and in a way, the company's been a sort of a victim of its own success, given the speed at which the partnerships have expanded. So it's critical the market knows who we are, what we do, how we can help, and I guess yeah, that little black book is always going to help. So the next aim, I think for me, we've sort of isolated the partnering with sportsbook providers to ensure we're integrated along other best in breed solutions. So, for operators, there's a huge amount of noise out there for everyone claiming to have the shiny new thing. So it makes it really hard for operators to know which of the key feeds they should be relying upon. And I think so ensuring that sportsbook providers that service large numbers of operators around Europe, Middle East, and Africa have OpticOdds integrated as one of the premium options is absolutely critical. So those are probably the headlines.
That's great. Thanks a lot for your time, Leo. Really appreciate that.
No problem.